chosen, prepped and on focus. God has a plan for me. No weapon shall prosper, I'm more than a conqueror. God's got his hand on me, I know who I am.
Heartwarming update, shout out to ML football. Browns Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders visited a young man battling both sickle cell disease and cancer to lift his spirits a couple of months ago. This week, that fan has beaten cancer, graduated, attended prom, and continues to inspire. God is good. Can we get an amen? While the haters are sitting there lying about Shedeur Sanders being a problem within the locker room, the players don't like him, the coaches don't like him, yet me and G. Bush keep...
A hospital room. A kid fighting two diseases at the exact same time, sickle cell and cancer hitting his body simultaneously, while the rest of the world kept moving like nothing was wrong. Most people in that situation are lucky to get a text from someone they barely know. What they absolutely do not expect is an NFL quarterback walking through that door with 0 cameras, 0 publicists, and 0 interest in making it a moment for social media. That is exactly what happened. Shedeur Sanders showed up for that kid when nobody was watching and nobody was going to write a headline about it. No press release, no team PR strategy. He just went. And months after that visit, that same young man beat cancer, walked across a graduation stage, and went to his prom like every other kid his age gets to do. Now here is the question that should be making every reporter covering this team deeply uncomfortable right now. How do you spend months calling a man a locker room problem and then go completely silent when a story like this surfaces? Drop one word in the comments that describes the real Shedeur Sanders. Just one word. Let this community answer that question together.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Dropping those receipts.
Casey, you know, we're talking about the wide receiver group, but of course one of the big conversations around the Browns is going to be who's the starting quarterback going to be? Is it going to be Shedeur? Is it going to be Deshaun? From a guy who caught balls from both of them all offseason, how do you think that competition has gone?
It's been going amazing. Both of those guys, you know, are amazing people, amazing teammates, you know, amazing quarterbacks. You know, everybody is fighting, you know, for a spot on the roster. So, you know, it's going to be, you know, intriguing, you know, who comes away with it.
Let's slow this down and really sit with what actually happened here, because the details matter far more than the headline does. This was not a scheduled Browns community outreach event. It was not organized by the front office to generate positive press during a difficult offseason. There was no camera crew waiting in the hallway. There was no social media coordinator outside that hospital room door ready to capture the moment for content. This was a private decision made by a rookie quarterback who had every single reason to spend his offseason focused entirely on himself and chose not to. Think about the pressure Shedeur Sanders was already carrying at this point. He was in the middle of one of the most watched quarterback competitions in recent NFL history. Every practice rep was being dissected. Every throw was being evaluated. Every interaction with coaches and teammates was being interpreted through the lens of a media narrative that had already decided he was a problem before he completed a single pass in a real game. The logical, self-preserving move would have been to keep his head down, stay focused on football, and avoid anything that might create a distraction. Instead, he went to a hospital room. The young man he visited was not dealing with one health crisis. He was fighting 2 of them at the same time, which is a level of physical and emotional weight that is genuinely difficult to put into words. Sickle cell disease alone is one of the most relentless conditions a person can live with. It attacks the red blood cells, causes them to break down at a pace the body cannot keep up with, and creates episodes of severe pain that can hit without warning and last for days. Patients describe it as feeling like their bones are being crushed from the inside. Managing it requires constant medical attention, careful lifestyle management, and an enormous amount of mental strength just to get through ordinary days. Now add cancer to that picture. This young man was navigating both simultaneously, fighting on two fronts at once, while most people his age were worrying about things that feel almost embarrassingly small by comparison. The mental toll of that kind of situation goes far beyond what medicine alone can address. At a certain point, what a patient needs more than anything else is proof that someone outside those hospital walls believes they are going to make it. That kind of belief, coming from someone unexpected, someone significant, someone who had absolutely no obligation to show up, can shift something fundamental in how a person approaches their own fight. Shedeur Sanders walked in and gave that young man exactly that. Months later, the results speak in a way that no press release ever could. That young man beat cancer. He graduated. He went to his prom in a suit and celebrated one of the biggest nights of his teenage years alongside his peers. That progression from a hospital bed fighting two diseases to a diploma and a dance floor is not a small story. It is a complete transformation, and a rookie quarterback who showed up quietly was part of the reason it happened. Fans called it a miracle. It is very hard to argue with that word when you look at the full picture laid out in front of you. Here is where this story gets genuinely difficult to sit with.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Here is where this story gets genuinely difficult to sit with, because the timing of everything makes the media behavior surrounding Shedeur Sanders look far worse than it already did. While that young man was getting stronger in a hospital room, a specific group of reporters and media personalities were actively working to dismantle Shedeur's reputation with the kind of confidence that should require actual evidence to back it up. They sat behind microphones and in front of cameras and told large audiences with complete certainty that Shedeur Sanders was a locker room problem, not a developing player still finding his footing, not a young quarterback with things to learn. A problem, a source of organizational dysfunction, a guy the players could not stand and the coaches were already losing patience with. Every single bit of it came without a single named source from inside that building. This is the part that deserves to sit with people for a moment. These are professional reporters, people whose entire credibility is built on the premise that they have real access, real relationships, and real information that ordinary fans cannot get on their own. That is the entire value proposition of beat reporting at the NFL level. You are supposed to be inside the building metaphorically, if not literally, talking to people who know things, verifying claims before amplifying them, and holding yourself to a standard that justifies the platform you have been given. What fans got instead were anonymous whispers, vague implications, and accusations carefully worded just loosely enough that they could never be fully disproven. No names, no specific incidents, no timestamps, just a persistent fog of negativity that kept getting refreshed every time it started to fade. The cynical reality of how this trick works in sports media is not complicated. You identify a figure who generates strong reactions. You attach a controversy to them. You keep it just ambiguous enough that nobody can completely shut it down. And then you ride the engagement that controversy produces for as long as the algorithm rewards you for it. The actual truth of the situation becomes secondary to how many clicks the narrative is generating, and the person at the center of it has almost no effective way to fight back without making the story bigger. Shedeur Sanders became that story this offseason. Not because the evidence pointed there, not because people inside the Browns facility were privately confirming the narrative to credible sources, but because a certain segment of sports media decided the story was more valuable than the truth and ran with it anyway. What makes this version of the trick particularly cynical is what was actually happening at the same time. While anonymous hit pieces were circulating online, Shedeur was on a practice field making plays that were genuinely impressing the coaches whose entire careers depend on evaluating quarterback talent accurately. The gap between the media version of events and the on-field reality was growing wider every single week. Fans noticed. They have been quietly building a case for months, and the people who were willing to actually show their receipts were about to make that gap impossible for anyone to ignore. The most revealing part of any false narrative is not the lie itself. It is what was happening in the real world at the exact same moment the lie was being told, because the contrast between the two things exposes the motive behind the deception more clearly than any direct accusation ever could. So let's look at what was actually happening inside the Browns organization. While certain reporters were busy pushing the locker room dysfunction story with such confidence and conviction, teammates were going on record, not anonymously, not through carefully filtered statements from team representatives. Actual players with their names and faces attached were sitting in front of microphones and describing Shedeur Sanders in terms that directly contradicted everything the anonymous narrative was claiming. They used words like amazing. They talked about him as a competitor who raised the level of everyone around him. They described a quarterback room that was working hard, staying professional, and preparing for a real competition, without any of the tension that the outside world kept insisting must be there. Coaches were watching film and coming away genuinely impressed, not politely satisfied, not cautiously optimistic in the way coaches talk when they are trying to protect a player's confidence without overpromising. Actually impressed, in the specific film room, coverage diagram way that football people talk when they are describing something real rather than something manufactured for public consumption. The front office was standing firm. In an NFL offseason where organizations routinely distance themselves from controversy the moment the optics get complicated, the Browns' leadership did not blink. There were no quiet signals sent through reporters suggesting Shedeur was on thin ice. There were no veiled comments about the team reconsidering its approach at the position. The people with the most information and the most at stake were behaving like a team that believed in what it was building. None of that matched the story being told on certain platforms. And here is the part that should genuinely concern anyone who consumes sports media regularly. The real story, the one with named sources, specific examples, and verifiable facts, was consistently less visible than the manufactured one. The anonymous hit pieces generated more engagement, more debate, and more algorithmic reward than the straightforward accounts from actual people inside the facility. The system essentially incentivized the wrong version of events and penalized the accurate one. That is not an accident. Controversy drives clicks. Resolution does not. A story where Shedeur Sanders is thriving in practice, respected by teammates, and impressing coaches is a story that ends. A story where he is supposedly toxic and the locker room is secretly falling apart is a story that can be extended indefinitely with no new evidence required. Fans who were paying close attention to both streams of information this offseason had a very clear picture of which version was real. The people dropping receipts consistently, pulling actual quotes, naming actual players and coaches, and doing the unglamorous work of fact-checking were telling a completely different story than the anonymous insider crowd. And then the players themselves started talking loud enough that even the casual observer could not miss it. Concepcion did not walk up to that microphone with an agenda. He was not attempting to make a statement, defend a teammate from criticism, or position himself as a Shedeur Sanders ally for political reasons inside the locker room. He was a rookie wide receiver answering a straightforward question as honestly as he knew how, which is exactly why what came out of his mouth hit so much harder than anything a media personality has managed to produce throughout this entire offseason. The question put to him was simple. He spent the whole offseason catching passes from both Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. From that specific vantage point, actually running routes, actually having the football land in his hands from both quarterbacks, rep after rep after rep, how did he assess the competition between them? He answered without hesitation. Both of them, he said, are amazing people, amazing teammates, amazing quarterbacks. No pause to consider the politics of the situation. No careful diplomatic wording designed to say something without actually saying anything. No subtle lean in one direction that reporters could read into and spin into a storyline. Just a direct, genuine, completely unguarded assessment from someone whose entire professional evaluation of both quarterbacks comes from the most honest place possible, actually working with them every day. Now let's really think about what this means given the specific context of everything that has surrounded Shedeur this offseason. Concepcion is fighting for a roster spot. He is a young player trying to build relationships, establish himself as a professional, and avoid unnecessary controversy at the most critical moment of his early career. He has every practical incentive to give a careful, non-committal answer that keeps him out of the Shedeur conversation entirely. That would have been the safe play. Nobody would have blamed him for it. He chose not to do that. He went straight to amazing. He said it in 3 different contexts: amazing person, amazing teammate, amazing quarterback. And not once did his tone or his body language suggest he was performing a loyalty display rather than expressing a genuine opinion. This was a young man saying what he actually believed because he had the direct experience to back it up. There is also a practical dimension to this that is worth examining carefully. A wide receiver's performance is directly connected to the quality of the quarterback throwing to him. When the quarterback sees coverage correctly, the receiver gets the ball in rhythm. When the quarterback hesitates, forces throws, or reads the field poorly, the receiver either does not get the ball at all or gets it in impossible situations. Concepcion's own numbers in practice, his own opportunities to make plays and build a case for a roster spot, were directly tied to how well Shedeur was processing the game. If something was off, if Shedeur was really the problem the anonymous sources kept claiming, Concepcion would have felt it in his own performance every single day. He called him amazing instead. The reporters who never ran a single route against an NFL defense claimed to know more about Shedeur Sanders than the receiver who caught hundreds of his throws. That gap in credibility is not small. It is the entire story. Bajakian is not a coach who deals in empty encouragement. His entire professional function is to identify what is not working in a quarterback's game and fix it, which requires him to be completely honest about what he is seeing even when that honesty is uncomfortable. You do not develop NFL quarterbacks by telling them they are doing great when the film says otherwise. You develop them through specificity, through honest evaluation, and through a relentless commitment to the standard required to succeed at the highest level of professional football. That is the lens through which his comments about Shedeur Sanders need to be understood. When Bajakian sat down and said he was blown away, he was not performing for the cameras or trying to generate good press for a player navigating a difficult offseason narrative. He was a football coach describing what he had actually seen on actual film in the kind of specific, technical detail that cannot be faked or manufactured for an audience. And the word he chose, blown away, is not the word coaches use when they are being politely supportive. It is the word they use when something genuinely surprised them. Then he explained exactly what blew him away, and this is the part that matters most. He described a jog-through practice. For anyone not deep in football vocabulary, a jog-through is the lowest intensity form of practice that exists at the professional level. It is essentially a walking rehearsal. Players move through their assignments at half speed, getting the spacing and timing right without any of the physical intensity of a real rep. Most quarterbacks treat jog-throughs exactly the way the name suggests. They go through the motions, make sure their feet end up in the right zip code, and save their focus for when the real work starts. Shedeur Sanders was reading coverages at full cognitive speed during a jog-through. Bajakian described a specific moment where Shedeur identified a safety rotation mid-play during one of these low-intensity periods. He saw the post safety sitting down on the crosser. He processed that the post route over the top was going to come open as a direct result of that rotation, and he threw to the right spot before the play had fully developed in front of him. Bajakian watched it happen in real time, and his first reaction was genuine confusion. He did not fully understand what Shedeur had seen at full speed, so he went back to the film and watched it frame by frame. And there it was, exactly as Shedeur had processed it. The safety sat. The post was open. The throw fit the coverage perfectly. That level of pre-snap and mid-play processing as a rookie, at half-practice speed, before a single regular season snap, is genuinely rare. Most quarterbacks spend years building that kind of instinctual reading ability through game experience, through getting burned, through watching their own failures on film until the patterns become automatic. Bajakian highlighted vision and work ethic as the two things that define what he has seen from Shedeur so far. Not arm strength, not mobility. The two things that actually win games when the season gets long and the pressure gets real. There are moments in sports media that cut through all the noise and expose exactly what a narrative is actually built on. Most of those moments never happen because the people asking questions are too invested in relationships, too careful about access, or too committed to their own previous positions to push hard enough to find the real answer. Bush pushed hard enough. When Jason Lloyd tried to slide into the conversation with the implication that Shedeur Sanders had left some kind of organizational wreckage behind him, some trail of broken dynamics and damaged relationships that justified the months of negative coverage, Bush did not let it pass. He did not nod along the way most people in that situation would. He stopped everything and asked the one question the entire coverage ecosystem had somehow managed to avoid asking directly for months. Who actually got hurt? Name one person, just one. Not as a rhetorical flourish, as a genuine demand for evidence from someone claiming the damage was real. Show the body. Identify the victim. Point to the specific person whose situation got demonstrably worse because of Shedeur Sanders. Jason Lloyd could not do it. Because the person does not exist. Bush then walked through the actual outcomes of the situation one by one, with the calm precision of someone who had clearly done the research and was not interested in pretending the facts were anything other than what they were. Kevin Stefanski is gone from his head coaching position, but that outcome has far more to do with a franchise that had been cycling through coaches for years than it does with one rookie quarterback. Andrew Berry did not just survive the situation, he got a raise. Todd Monken did not disappear into professional irrelevance. He landed a new job. Shedeur Sanders himself got real competitive reps in a legitimate quarterback competition at the NFL level. Walk through that list one more time. A raise, a new job, real reps. These are the outcomes that the so-called disaster produced for the people at the center of it. When Jason Lloyd tried to pivot toward the locker room, the reliable escape hatch that vague accusations always retreat to when the specific claims fall apart under pressure, Bush refused to follow him there without evidence. He demanded the same thing he demanded for every other part of the argument. Show your work. Give names. Stop describing a feeling and start identifying a fact. And then he did something that made the contrast impossible to ignore. He listed the names himself: Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, Quinshon Judkins, the general manager, the head coach. Real people with real jobs inside that real building who had all gone on record and said nothing negative. Not one coded complaint. Not one carefully worded non-answer that a reporter could interpret as quiet dissatisfaction. Just straightforward positive assessments from people who actually share that space with Shedeur every single day. Jason Lloyd had anonymous feelings. Bush had a list of names. When you lay those two things side by side and ask which one constitutes actual evidence, the answer is not even close. Step back from the specific details of this story for a moment and look at the larger pattern it represents. Because what happened with Shedeur Sanders this offseason is not unique to him. It is a blueprint that gets used repeatedly in sports media, and understanding how it works is the only real protection fans have against falling for it. The blueprint goes like this. A high-profile figure enters a market or a situation that already carries built-in tension. In Shedeur's case, that tension was layered and obvious from multiple directions. The draft process, the family name, the position he plays, the team's history of instability at quarterback, and the competing narrative of a veteran like Deshaun Watson, whose own complicated history added another dimension to everything. All of those elements together created the perfect environment for manufactured controversy, because there was already enough real complexity in the story that additional fabrication could hide inside it without being immediately obvious. Then a segment of media figures makes a calculation. They decide that the engagement generated by pushing a negative narrative about this person is worth more to them than the accuracy of what they are publishing. They use language carefully enough to avoid direct accountability, anonymous sources, passive voice, vague implications, while still delivering the emotional payload of a damning accusation to their audience. The audience reacts. The algorithm rewards the reaction. The story gets bigger, and suddenly the fabricated version of events has so much momentum behind it that correcting it requires significantly more effort than creating it did. This is the asymmetry that makes false sports narratives so persistent and so damaging. Lies travel fast because they are designed to travel fast. They are engineered for emotional reaction, which is what drives sharing and engagement at every level of digital media. The truth tends to travel slower because it requires more context, more specificity, and more willingness to sit with nuance rather than react to a headline. What made the Shedeur Sanders situation different from most versions of this blueprint is that the receipts came consistently and from multiple directions at once. It was not one person pushing back. It was a pattern of real evidence, player quotes, coach assessments, organizational outcomes, and personal character stories like the hospital visit that accumulated into something too substantial to dismiss or drown out. ML football was dropping information. Bush was demanding specificity. Fans were comparing what they were hearing from actual players against what anonymous sources were claiming and finding the gap too wide to ignore. The community around this story did the work that the credentialed press refused to do, and they did it without the resources, the access, or the platform that professional reporters are supposed to use for exactly this purpose. The truth caught up because people refused to let it get buried. That is not how it should work in a functional sports media environment. The credentialed press should be the ones demanding evidence and checking narratives. But when they abdicate that responsibility, fans who care enough to pay attention will fill the gap. That is exactly what happened here, and it matters far beyond one quarterback's reputation. Everything that happened this offseason, every anonymous accusation, every receipt dropped in response, every teammate quote, every coaching assessment, every moment of real character revealed in a hospital room with no cameras present. All of it is now part of the foundation Shedeur Sanders is going to carry into the regular season. And here is the thing about foundations built under pressure. They tend to hold. There is a specific kind of mental durability that develops in athletes who have been tested before the real competition even begins. Not tested on the field, where the parameters are clear and the rulebook is consistent, but tested in the public eye, where the attacks come from directions that have nothing to do with what you actually control, and the only defense available is to keep showing up and doing the work anyway. Shedeur Sanders spent this entire offseason doing exactly that. While reporters were cycling through the same negative narrative on repeat, he was in the film room late enough that his quarterback coach came away blown away by what he was seeing during jog-throughs. While anonymous sources were claiming his teammates resented him, Those teammates were going on record with their real names attached and calling him amazing without a moment's hesitation. While people who had never met him were constructing a character profile built entirely on assumptions and agenda, he was walking into a hospital room for a kid fighting cancer with no interest in whether anyone ever found out. That kind of consistency between who you are publicly and who you are privately, between what you say you value and what you actually do when nobody is watching, is extraordinarily difficult to fake over an extended period of time. Most people cannot maintain that gap when the external pressure gets high enough. Shedeur maintained it through one of the most scrutinized off-seasons a Browns quarterback has ever navigated. Now the regular season is coming, and everything shifts. The anonymous accusations stop mattering the moment the ball is snapped in a game that counts. No narrative survives contact with real NFL competition. Either a quarterback can process a defense at full speed under full pressure with real consequences attached to every decision, or he cannot. The film does not lie. The scoreboard does not care about off-season drama. The game has a way of settling every argument that the off-season manufactures. Based on everything the people closest to Shedeur Sanders have said, the receiver catching his passes, the coach studying his film, the front office betting its future on his development, the expectation inside that building is that he belongs in this competition and can win it. Based on what happened in that hospital room, the expectation of the young man who beat cancer and went to his prom is probably even higher than that. Shedeur Sanders has already proven who he is when the cameras are off. The cameras are about to turn on in a way that makes everything that happened this off-season feel small by comparison. The people who were wrong about him are running out of time to change their story. And the people who trusted the receipts all along are about to watch every single one of them get validated. Pull back and look at everything laid out across this video as one complete picture. A quarterback visits a dying kid with no cameras and no agenda. That kid beats cancer. His teammates call him amazing without flinching. His quarterback coach studies the film and comes away genuinely blown away. When someone finally demands proof of all the negativity surrounding him, the room goes quiet because there is nothing there. No names, no evidence, no victims, just a narrative that was always built on air. The version of Shedeur Sanders that certain reporters spent months selling to their audiences, and the version that exists in reality are not slightly different. They are completely opposite. One was manufactured in studios by people who needed a story. The other was built on a practice field, in a film room, and in a hospital room by a person who kept showing up regardless of who was watching. Fans who paid attention already knew which version was real. The regular season is going to confirm it for everyone else. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button, subscribe to Gridiron Ground, and keep your eyes on this story. The best part has not even started yet.
I'm blown away. You know, I think Shedeur has really good vision of the field. You know, he'll say things in practice sometimes. I'll be like, what did you get there? Or I'll see something on the field that doesn't resonate with me. And then when I go back and watch it on video, you know, he might be throwing the deep post versus post safety look in what is maybe a jog through type of tempo. But then sure enough, I see that the post safety sat on the crosser and gave us a post over the top. And so his vision with his work ethic has been good to see, you know.
So what I like to do, sometimes you're talking about yourself. Now, do you really want to relive that? I wasn't going. A lot of people over here didn't have no problem. Where's the problem? We lived through something. Only person that turned out for is Kevin Stefanski. Everybody else is cool. Andrew Berry got a raise. Todd Monken got a new job. Shedeur got reps. I'm confused. Why did it work out bad for people? So I need the names of the people who it worked out bad for. Well, that doesn't really really have anything to do with him. That has to do with the noise surrounding him.
But it absolutely
Shedeur
has to
Sanders.
do with the locker room.
Show your work. What locker room? I gave you 6 people. What locker room? I gave you AC Concepcion, Denzel Boston, Quinshawn Judkins. I've given you